good time in LA Rath Yatra?
Yes.
Hari Hari Bol, Jai Jagannath. I saw some good pictures. Badri Narayan Swami said, I said, I'm sorry I couldn't come. But you were there. I said, no, I wasn't there. No, I saw you. And I said, no, I didn't make it. I couldn't because of my health. And he said, I had sent him a message saying how sad I was to see that he was suffering with his health so much. And I was thinking he wasn't going to be able to make it to LA Rath Yatra. It didn't look good there for a while. And so then I saw these pictures of LA Rath Yatra, and there he is. So I sent him off a note saying, sorry I couldn't be there. I'm so happy to see that you made it. And he said, but I saw you. I said, no, I wasn't. No, I know I saw you. And I said, no. He said, it was probably that email message you sent me, wishing my health good. So you came. So he said, I got to see you. So I'm thinking, yes, transcendental vision. I just have dental vision. Spent 4.5 hours in the dentist chair the other day. So. But it was worth it. So, here it is. We're going to talk about how to see yourself. So, this is something we like to talk about a lot because we need to meditate on it. As we all know, but we need to repeat it again and again, we're in this world of illusion. So things that we think we see may not really be there, or if they are there, they disappear. They come and they go so fast. What is that? What's the use of that? Something that it's like if I give you $100 and then I take it right back. Later on, I take it back. So what was the benefit of that $100? It was temporary. It came and it went. So for us, we're eternal living entities. Things that come and go don't really have any value to someone who is eternal. The come and go things have value when you identify with this come and go world. Here you are in great illusion thinking that I'm part of this. I am this body. You are your body. Your mother is the same as my mother. That makes us, why we have the same blood. You ever heard people say, we have the same blood in our veins? So, what? I mean, if we both had the same breakfast, we'd have kitchery. We'd have the same kitchery in our stomach. And through the digestive process, we'd have the same something else in our body. You see what I mean? So how important is it that your body has the same blood as mine? There's no importance at all to you, the elevated, eternal, living entity. So, but we're all kind of befuddled. Is that still a word?
Yeah.
Confused? Because here we are, and this is pretty much all we know. So, some of us are fortunate enough to get a glimpse of reality. I like to think of the man behind the curtain. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? See the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dorothy thought she was dealing with this big, powerful wizard. But he was going to grant her every wish. He was going to get her back home to Auntie M, back home to Kansas. And so she had such great faith in his magic and his power. Why, he appeared as this gigantic head. You know, nobody could even understand the great, what was he called? The great and all-powerful Oz. So, and then the little dog, Toto, saw that there was somebody behind this curtain and pulled the curtain open. And here's this little old man, just an average guy. He was caught there too. He was just like her. He got there somehow or other. He didn't know how to get out. So when Dorothy she did the math and she realized, hey, wait, you are the Oz? Well, you're just an ordinary guy. So once you see the man behind the curtain, how do you undo what you've seen? How do you dumb yourself down once you get knowledge? I mean, you can temporarily dumb yourself down with intoxication or something, get to where you can get in a really dumb stage for a while, but that'll go away if you let it.
You give yourself a concussion.
You can give yourself a concussion. Yeah. That's very similar to getting intoxicated, isn't it? So, you see where I'm going? Once you learn the truth, how do you unlearn it? It's not possible. You can't do it, no matter how hard you try. So, if you go through this human life like you have all of your other billions of lifetimes, believing that you and your brother have the same blood, well, that's even a special term we use, isn't it? My brother, my homie, homeboys. And I'm calling you that because I want you to know that you're different from him. He's not a homie. You're a homie. So you see how I tighten it down to inclusivity and exclusivity? Why? Because we have the same blood, or we stand for the same cause, so that we choose our friends and our associates based on these material designations. And so we go through life, after life, after life, with this same concept. So every so often, we have to remember this because it's hard to learn. It's hard to remember. We have to remember that when I look in the mirror, I'm not seeing me. I'm not seeing me at all. I'm seeing this body. I'm seeing, well, I'd like to describe it as a bag of skin full of bones and blood and all kinds of other yucky stuff. You're a doctor. You know what's in there, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's beautiful. No. You, the driver of the body, are beautiful. And we have to once in a while take a look at ourselves. We need to learn how to see ourselves. So, pardon me, I think I've got some allergies or something. So, I'm going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 27th chapter, verses 9 and 10, and stop me at any time with questions, comments. This isn't a very formal gathering, so we can just kick it back and forth between us as much as we want, don't we? So, text 9, Krishna says, one's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter. And one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body and thus become attracted by bodily relationships.
was the verse again?
Huh?
What was the verse number again?
This is text 9,
What was the canto?
3rd canto, 27th chapter.
Oh, okay.
So one's seeing power, Krishna says, is increased through knowledge of spirit and matter. Once you get an understanding of what we're talking about here and get some definition of what is spirit and what is matter, you'd be surprised how many people go through their life and they don't know the difference between spirit and matter. See, I mean, isn't it all like God? Like everything? Well, yeah, it is, but it's not. This is Krishna's inferior energy, this microphone. These beautiful mountains that we see when we look to the north up here, of course, we see mountains just about every direction here. So they're really temporary. They had a beginning, and one of these days, they're not going to be there anymore. So you may say, but they lasted for billions of years. In the scope of eternity, how long is billions of years? It's not even a nanosecond. We're confused by the passing of time. If we went to a higher planetary system, we would be confused by the passing of time, and the passing of time is different than the passing of time here. You have a question?
Yeah. So like the mountains, like although the mountains disappeared, wouldn't like the underlying substance of the mountain always exist?
Meaning the elements?
Yeah, or like whatever comprises the energy, like the whatever it is, like you know, the mountain might crumble and like turn into smaller gravel, but the energy that underlies the mountain is still there. Like your concept or category of mountain may not be there anymore, but the underlying substance still remains, right?
Well, what if the mountain's gone? What if you could come back in a billion years and you'd look up there at Finger Rock? I'm back in Tucson. I want to see, let me see, Finger Rock, yeah. Hey, wait a minute. That's north. There's no mountains there. Are you sure there really were mountains? Well, yeah, I think so.
Maybe it was a dream though.
Could have been a dream.
But I mean, like,
Isn't it like a dream? Because it comes and goes. So the makeup of the mountain, the earth, water, fire, air, and ether that make up the mountain, these are all parts of the Mahatattva. Mahatattva is that which contains everything. So within this material world, Srimad Bhagavatam explains fabulously what's going on here. Mahatattva contains everything. And so at creation, the Mahatattva gives forth this material energy, the substance, the earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These come out. And at annihilation, they all go back. Everything goes back. All living entities, all of us. How many times do you think we've been in and out of Mahavishnu's body?
That's scary.
We have gone through so many annihilations and creations, it's not even countable. So at the end, when everything is vanquished, the living entities that are going back home to Godhead go. The material energy goes into Mahatattva. All right, Krishna, what a great surprise. Is this your first time? In a long time? So, and all the spirit souls that are left here, they go into Mahavishnu's body. And they stay there until the next creation. So, where'd your mountain go at annihilation? You know, on the next creation, probably nothing's going to be exactly the same as it was before.
But do you think the energy still remains and the energy just transformed into like another form?
What is this energy you're talking about?
Whatever is fundamental to the substance of the, like the material energy seems like it always exists, but it's just like a constant like fluctuation. Like it might change in its shape and appearance, but it seems like the energy isn't created or destroyed. So the cat or whatever like you're putting on it, that dissolves. Like you draw a shape around the mountain, you're saying that's a mountain. That's going to change, but the underlying substance seems to be constant, right?
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is the underlying substance. A mountain is basically a pile of rocks and dirt. So, just like it says here, one's seeing power should be increased through the knowledge of spirit and matter. Let's understand, what is spirit? What is matter? And does it matter? I have to do that. Yeah, so what is spirit and what is matter? Matter is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Spirit is you, Krishna, the other living entities. All of this is part of Krishna's energy, but it's his inferior energy. You see, it doesn't have you. So
what exactly is a living entity? There's like a soul or like a spirit, and that's like acting its will and like, you know, causing the body to move. Seems like that's the spirit. And then what's the difference between spirit and living entity? Is living entity like the combination of like the physical body moving in conjunction with the spirit?
No. Spirit is the living entity.
Oh.
The Atma is the self. When you become Atmadrik, then you're self-realized. You realize the self. That's what part of the point of the class is, that most people don't realize the difference between their body and their self. You know, that question I like to ask when there's a new group of people. You know, show of hands, how many of you believe you have a soul? Yeah. So, no, you're wrong. Who is this you that has a soul? See? You went right past the... Why? What's the obstacle? The soul is you. But you think you have a soul. Well, that's preposterous. How can... You see what I mean? This is because we immediately, it's a reflex, think of the body as the self. I, this, have a soul, because this is me, and I have a soul. That is so far from the truth. I've asked people that before. Who is this you then? You have a soul. Who and what is this you? Huh? And therefore, you can't see yourself. You don't know anything about yourself because you identify with this body. And that changes everything. He's my brother. He's my homeboy. The rest of you, I don't even know. So stay off of our turf. You see? How is that spiritual understanding?
Because they're all wearing saffron.
How does that even approach spiritual understanding? No, spiritual understanding is I am part and parcel of Krishna, and so are you, and so is everyone else. You're all my homeboy and homegirl. Do they have homegirls?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I never hear about them. I only hear about the homeboys. But you're cool. You know, if you say there's homegirls, there's homegirls. I'm with you there. So you see what I'm talking about? Because of that error, I see a difference between you and you. Big error is I think I'm my body and you must be yours too. I'm so wrong. It's like if you start out by assuming that 2 + 2 is 5. Then going forward, all of your mathematical dealings are going to be wrong. Everything's wrong because you were in your formulas, 2 + 2 = 4, or 5, therefore, your answers are going to be wrong. You see? So, I am my body means that everything that I think of about me going forward for eternity, unless I get turned around, is wrong. Wrong. Your body and my body may be byproducts of somebody else's bodies. What does that mean? What does that matter? Really? Yeah.
So we're each a soul, but it seems like each soul has different characteristics or acts differently. So shouldn't you treat each person as an individual or differently because each individual has different characteristics? So like, for example, like someone wearing saffron is going to embody certain characteristics and perform certain actions. So it's like, shouldn't you treat those people different than someone who performs a different set of actions or has different characteristics?
Oh, yeah, we do that. We make them sit by themselves. We don't let them play with the girls. Everybody else gets girls. They don't get girls. Or at least they're not supposed to. So, yeah, under certain circumstances, we deal with one another differently. It's achitya beta beta tattva, simultaneously one and different. We are all exactly the same. We are true blood brothers and sisters. We all have the same DNA as Krishna. We're identical. And yet, no two of us are the same. Of unlimited living entities, no two are the same. Each and every one is completely and totally unique. Only God could make that arrangement. Unlimited living entities and no duplicates. And he has a particular relationship with each and every living entity, a completely unique relationship. What Krishna gets from you, he can't get from anybody else. And what he gets from you, he can't get anywhere else. So you've got this simultaneous one and different happening going on. Does that make sense? Did I explain that clearly? Let me get his question. His arm's going to start.
I was going to say that in that same part of the Bhagavatam talks pretty clearly about like you mentioned Mahatattva, that the Mahatattva is like Krishna's energy. It's not destroyed, but like the material energy isn't permanent. Like it comes out and it disappears. Some of the spiritual world's always been existing, always will, but the creation is temporal. The creation of this world is temporal. It appears and it disappears. And all the energy, all the earth, water, fire, air, it all collapses on itself into the Pradhan, and the Pradhan collapses into the Mahatattva, and the Mahatattva is sucked back into Mahavishnu, and so then it's like gone. And until he decides to resurrect it, it comes back. So I mean, in the sense that Krishna is eternal, Krishna's energy is eternal, that everything's eternal in that sense, but it's basically just sucked down to the lowest possible. It's actually within Mahavishnu's body, including us, as long as we're in this place. But the spiritual world has always been, always will be. And we say in the Catholic Church, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
yeah, the spiritual world is unchanging, except that it's always getting better. And some people, when they hear that, they think, well, that means that the spiritual world is getting better, a little better, constantly getting a little better. This better, this increase we're talking about, is like millions of times every split second. The pleasure and the bliss of the spiritual world increases millions of times. And this goes on for eternity. It always has. So, yeah, this material world is, you could say, in time, it's non-existent. Creation before this one, what can we prove about it? Was that mountain there? Was Earth here? When Mahavishnu allows Brahma to create again, you think he's going to do it just exactly the way it was before? And whether he does or doesn't, what does it matter? It's just a temporary thing. It's like building a sandcastle. You know, in Jagannath Puri, you walk along the beach there, and some people go out there and they make these giant forms of Jagannath in the sand. They do it so well. I mean, the artistry is just amazing. And so you walk by one day, walking down the beach, chanting around, and you look at this creation in the sand, and you think, this is so beautiful. We've got good eyes and the smile, and, you know, it's just gorgeous. Even a giant garland. You go by there the next day after the tide came in that night, he's all gone. You see? So, you see, material world comes and goes. It continues to come and go. So, let me read on a little bit, and I'll do some more questions. The main thing is relationships. If you take the spiritual energy, which includes you, if we take the spirit out of this material world, what is there left to relate, to have a relationship? Do you think the rocks look at each other and say, hey, man, are you granite? Yeah. You know, this guy over here is limestone. I don't think I like him. See? You think all of these material elements are going to have any type of relationship? If there's no relationship, there's no loving relationship because there's no love. Now, when you come into the picture, you're all about love. You, the living entity, well, that's your propensity. You are an empowered lover. You're empowered to love Krishna. And that enhances his ecstasy. So it takes a lot of empowerment for you to be able to enhance Krishna's ecstasy by loving him. So you're pretty good at it. World, we start having relationships. And the rocks and the rest of it, they don't have any relationship. Living entities means relationship, but we're having the wrong relationship. I'm having a relationship with you because I identify with your body. I'm either having a good relationship or a bad relationship. You know, the identification with your body, I'm seeing as gratifying. So therefore, we're having a good relationship. If that bodily relationship isn't going so well, we're having a bad relationship. This isn't possible for the living entity, for the Atmadrik, the realized living entity. It's not possible to have these. Now, you may have people that rub you the wrong way. You ever have somebody that rubs you the wrong way? Have you? We say that a lot, don't we? I don't know if I like that guy. He rubs me the wrong way. So, how do you polish a rock? Take another rock and you rub them together the wrong way. Creates heat, but it polishes. You ever see how when I was in Alaska, I saw there was this guy, weird guy that lived out in the mountains by himself, and he polished rocks. He didn't sell them, he just liked to polish them. And that was his story. You just rub them the wrong way and they polish, and after a while they get real smooth. They rub together real nice. But in the beginning, they may not rub together so easily. So we may have what appear to be unfavorable relationships with people. So that's a temporary thing. You may be in Maya, they may be in Maya, you may both be in Maya. The root cause is going to come down ultimately to some bodily identification. It's not spiritual identification. If we can get past the egos and the bodily identification, we're all going to love each other totally, completely. It's just thinking I am my body that causes the big rub. See? So, any questions before I go on?
I was thinking, there's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita says, for such a person, he sees rocks, pebbles, and stones as the same. And I was thinking, it's like it's all the living entity that gives everything, like the value, like it's like, like when you think of the bizarre nature of the material world, someone gets like, a wedding ring, it's like, I got you this rock on a ring, on another rock, on a piece of metal. And it has so much meaning, but it's really, it's just matter. It's really just matter. So, the love is what gives everything life.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a rock. Just like any other rock.
Given with love, it's different. It's like sometimes a child may make something for the parent. When they're real little, they'll make something, maybe like, they'll draw these stick people. It's terrible art. There's no taste. There's none of this stuff that'll make you say, very interesting. So it's really useless. But because of the love of the child, the parent receives it, and it is so beautiful. It brings tears. It's like amazing. You made this for me. Why people may keep that the rest of their life. I've seen after my mother left her body, my sister was going through her stuff, and she had all of these little notes that I had written, like when I was, 50, 55 years before. And she kept them. They were stupid note. When I read them, it was stupid. Huh? Why did she keep this? God, this makes me remember how dumb I was when I wrote this, But it was important to her. Pictures, things like that. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that love that you feel for devotees, for example, right? Like deep love, and then when you disappoint them, and you deal with that, you're like in that space of
When you disappoint them?
mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, we shouldn't just stop with the devotees. Yeah. We should love every living entity, including the ants and the grass, on an equal basis. Maybe that sounds like a tall order, but that's reality. So, and what was the rest of it?
When we disappoint those that we hold so dear in your heart, we love so dearly, and we do something that might be upsetting to them.
Yeah. If there's a true spiritual loving relationship, then there may be some slight disappointment, but it comes and goes just like that. I mean, it's not possible to, it's like the relationship between guru and disciple. The relationship between us and Krishna. There is nothing that we could possibly do to cause Krishna to love us any less. It's not possible. Even someone like Adolf Hitler didn't make Krishna love him any less. You see? So when we have these real transcendental relationships, it doesn't work that way. You may disappoint someone. And so they think, well, I thought I was expecting this from you, but you did that. Yeah, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Immediately forgiveness is given. You know? When you're dealing with someone who has some self-realization at least, what are they going to do? Stay mad at you? Immediately. No apology. Have you ever had anybody say that? No apology necessary.
No.
Oh, okay.
They don't want an apology.
Then you will have someone say, no apology necessary. In other words, the big thing is me and you. You make some mistake, I still have you, your association. You say, I got some disappointment. So the devotee may think, perhaps I expected too much. Maybe I was expecting too much. But whatever it is, we still have each other. And our mission, to go back home, back to Godhead, and take as many people with us as possible. So that's the important thing. If you take that away, that we don't have that same mission, and we don't see each other as part and parcel of Krishna, then my false ego comes into play. You know, you didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it. You didn't do it the way you implied you were going to do it. Now I'm all upset. And it may last a long time. See, it's improper relationship. I mean, we always try real hard not to disappoint those that we have a loving relationship with. But when we do, because of the loving relationship, it's forgiven immediately. Immediately. Now, there may be some people in your life that cause so much difficulty that it impairs your service. You see? So sometimes there are people that you need to bypass. You know? You're there, I love you, we're good. Well, you're a nice devotee, you've done a lot of service. But I think you can serve here, and I'll serve well, you know, and me there. And we're still friends. So, and there are people like that you'll meet going forward, that devotees that you wouldn't necessarily want today to serve side by side with. That's okay. You'll get over it. Time will change that as you advance and as they advance. Does that make any sense? Because of our bodily identification, we really and truly, and this is something that we need to work on the rest of our lives. We've forgotten how to love. I come into this material world. What am I looking for when I come here? when I'd leave Krishna and voluntarily come to this material world, what am I looking for? What could you possibly look for? You're with Krishna. Krishna has everything. Krishna shares everything. So you're looking for something other than Krishna. What is that? Dum, 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 dum,
Spreading
dum.
Krishna consciousness.
No,
To be the enjoyer.
to be the enjoyer. Yeah. How come Krishna? Why does he? What? He's always the center of attention. Why not me? So we developed self-interest. So the interest is in the family under normal situations in the spiritual world, which means all living entities and Krishna in all of his various forms. So that is our business. So my interest is for us. My interest is invested in we, the real homeboys, the living entities. Why, we're part and parcel of Krishna. We're all working for Krishna's enjoyment and the benefit of all the living entities. And then suddenly I get the curse of self-interest. Now I'm concerned about me. See? I'm not concerned about you anymore. I mean, I'll be concerned about you if I have to get some enjoyment from you. You see? Or I might even throw my phone on the floor just to get attention. It's self-interest. He knows. She does that all the time, doesn't she? Halfway through class. So self-interest in the material world, people will say, you got to look out for yourself. We've probably all heard that. You got to look out for number one. That's because you hear that because you're in the material world associating with people that are afflicted by material ignorance, lack of knowledge. Doesn't work. You get a whole creation of living entities that are looking out for themselves. Does this even make any sense? Well, it's a constant struggle. I mean, heck, we can't even drive down the street sometimes without a struggle. Some guy's blowing his horn and holding his finger up at a guy in front of it. They're angry. Why? Well, you invaded my space. You cut over too quickly. My false ego. My self-interest was I wanted to be up there in front of you. You see? So it's very hard for us to understand that concept of the oneness and desire to enhance Krishna's ecstasy. Rather, in this material world, we share the same desire, trying to enhance my ecstasy. And we're friends, so long as you help me enhance my ecstasy. And I'll even do for you. You know, it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's a business deal. Where's the love? Well, but that's love. I'm sorry. No. Krishna consciousness will awaken your dormant ability to love. It's just like right now with all the rain we've had lately. You notice how green? I drove down to Mexico Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. And I noticed all the way, big tall grass alongside the road. I've made this trip many times before. Where was the grass? Well, it was dormant. Grass was there, but the environment wasn't favorable for it to flourish. So you change the environment and make it favorable, and it's green like everything. The mountains are green. It's just, you change the environment to make it favorable so that the grass and all the other living entities that depend on water can come out of dormancy. You see? So this is what we need to do to the living entities that we encounter. People in this material world are not in a conducive environment to develop spiritual life. How could you be? Because you're in a world of people looking out for self-interest. Everybody's looking out for a numero uno. So how could that even work? You see? So we have to create, as we come together and as we use our loving propensity to love one another, we're creating an environment that's conducive to spiritual life. Without that, there's no chance for spiritual life to flourish. Even if you believe you're being spiritual, perhaps you are, but your definition of being spiritual is different than someone who's actually tasting it. Sometimes people may want to argue with, you think you're better than me? No, I don't. But I'm living in an atmosphere that's more conducive to understand God. Does this make sense? I'm not trying to pick on anybody or say your religion is less than mine. Who out there says, well, the whole purpose for our church is to learn to love God? Do they say that? I mean, no. We're going to want to go to heaven.
Fear God, mate.
Fear God.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, we hear a lot of that. I don't want to go to heaven. Mainly because I don't want to go to hell. And so that's your definition of spiritual life. That is not conducive to transcendental love. It's just not. So what we're trying to do is to create an atmosphere for us to live in and for others to live in to help people experience love of Godhead. Pretty simple. But to do that, you need a little bit of you need Atmadrik. You need some self-realization. You've got to get to see yourself. You need to be curious. What is this self? As I start to know Krishna more and more, I'm wondering, what does he see when he looks at me? These are things that an intelligent living entity would ponder. Why, Krishna, when you look at me, what do you see? What do you see? Because that's the real me, not this guy in the mirror. Or I'm going to have a makeover, so I'm going to be that person, right? I wasn't the person that I was before when I did a makeover and became this person. So am I going to be the person that hits next? I mean, in another few years, there's going to be a whole new set of styles. It's like in my lifetime, I've seen them change so much. They're going to tell you, should you wear baggy clothes or tight clothes? They're going to tell you. And you're not going to have much of a choice. You're going to go to the, like, I think the custom now, hey, Hare Krishna, Ram Nam. We have the name of Ram. It's like back in the 70s and later 60s, early 70s, people were wearing bell-bottom trousers. Men and women, everybody. then they went as time went on to be even more hip. They came out with the elephant bell bottom, elephant bells they call them. So the bell bottoms at the bottom were like bigger. You'd see people walking and the pants legs be going foof, 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 foof. Nobody could run. Foof, 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 foof. And so I remember after being in management in ISKCON for several years, I was going to go out back into business because I started having children. And I thought, well, I'm going to get a job and support my family. So I went to buy, I need to buy a suit. So I went to buy, I needed to buy several suits. So I looked and everything on the rack was like, it had these pleated pants. Remember that? And so I thought, what is this? Well, this looks like something out of the 1940s, you know? Looks like something Humphrey Bogart would wear. I mean, it looks nice, but it's different from what I was expecting you were going to have. I was thinking you're just going to have straight pant. No. And you wore the pants long and they had to, you know, be a little bell bottom, but not much. So through the years, I don't know about women's, but men's clothing, the legs got tighter and tighter and tighter until they're like
Skinny.
spandex. You see people going to the office in a suit wearing these pants that are like tied around their ankles. So you're doing that because they tell you you have to. First of all, I couldn't find a suit other than a pleated suit. So I said, all right, I'll blend in. I'll adjust. What do I care? So when you go to buy your clothes, you see, well, this is the latest style. I for sure want some of that. So it's controlling you. You're wearing different this and that. It's going to change. Every so often, it's going to change. The hairstyles will change. Whether or not we have facial hair will change. It would have, at one point, if you went to the office without shaving, you know, what if you forgot to shave before you went to the office? Wow, that would be pretty weird. Now, it's cool. It's hip. You know? Why? This is a manipulation of the material energy to get you to give me your money. That's all it is. So, let me read this one last verse. Krishna says one should be situated in the transcendental position beyond the stages of material consciousness and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. We should be aloof from these material conceptions. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just like he sees the sun in the sky. When you can become Atmadrik, self-realized, then you're okay with yourself. We're going to talk about this on Saturday at Tatiana's place. Is anybody who's coming to Tatiana's? Yeah?
Yeah. Well,
What about you? Huh? I'll take that as a yes. She didn't say no. Yeah, when you can get to the point where you finally realize yourself, then you're fine with yourself. You don't have to try hard to impress yourself or anyone else. You are what you are, part and parcel of Krishna. You're a servant of Krishna. I had a friend who was an aspiring disciple, but he left his body. Older fellow. He grew up with Bill Clinton. And they went to school together in Washington, Arkansas, which is right next door to Hope, Arkansas. So they grew up together. And this guy's name was Robert. I can never remember his name. Anyway, he was a close advisor of Bill Clinton. He pretty much got Bill elected to governor of Arkansas. And so he convinced Bill to run for president. And his family was in politics in Arkansas, so they convinced Bill to do it. And so Bill got elected. Who would have thunk it? This guy, the governor of Arkansas, he gets elected president. And so when he went to Washington, he took this guy with him. He moved him up there because he's a close advisor. And so, like, he was always somewhere close by because Bill might need him, like, hey, I need to ask you a question because I feel your pain. So then he noticed, he was telling me this. He was at the White House going into the Oval Office. And so here's this guy, Wolf Blitzer, one of the, I don't know if he's still around, but at that time he was part of the CNN team that covered the White House. Real famous guy. So he's walking down the hall, and Wolf Blitzer steps out of the crowd, grabs the door to the Oval Office, and holds it open for him. I wish I could remember his last name, Mr. Blair, I think. And Blitzer says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Blair." So he realized, everybody knows me. I don't do anything. So whenever he went to a restaurant, in any of the upscale restaurants in Washington, D.C., well, everybody knew who he was. And he always saw himself as just an old homeboy from Arkansas with a lot of money and a lot of brains. But so my point is, once you get to the realization of where you stand on a personal basis with God, that ought to make you feel all right about yourself. You ought to feel like, well, I've got connections in high places. I'm all right. So I don't have to worry about this self-interest. Well, I've got it made. It can't get any better. Yeah.
Your story just reminded me of a piece of Rath Yatra. The high point of my Rath Yatra trip was exactly that kind of realization. Somehow or another, during the Rath Yatra program, someone gave me one of these, like, this year they had these, like, big, huge, like, royal, like, flags, not like flags, but like, like banners. Like, they were heavy. And so somehow or another, I ended up, like, me and Curtis, the other devotees, Jivananda devotees ended up, like, with the banners, like, in front of the cart with Lord Jagannath for a while. And then when we came up to Lord Jagannath, he was on his cart. They take him off his cart and they put him on Subhadra's cart. They take him and Lord Baladev onto Subhadra's cart. And so we waited there for quite a while. And then they finally took Lord Jagannath down. And here we were, here I was in the front, and, they had all the pujaris, so us and, Nakatma were holding Lord Jagannath. And they had this guy with this huge megaphone, like with the siren on it. Wee, wee, wee. And like, they were like, all these big Brahmins pushing people out of the way, and here I am with this thing, and I look over, and Lord Jagannath's just ecstatic. I swear he like looked at me, and I got this sense of like, oh my God, this is like the like, think like the CIA, like they're protecting an important man or something, but it's like, here I am, somehow or another I find myself like in like God's entourage, This is like so intense, and like I realized like what am I doing here?
Yeah, how did this happen?
In God's entourage. I'm like in the Secret Service for God.
Yeah. How did I get here? Wait a minute. I've always been here. I just forgot. I'm just having realization. So
it really felt like, I was in some super high, like this is like what they're doing in Vaikuntha, the Lord is coming, and it's like this, there's like people move them out of the way, the Lord is coming, and like, I had this royal flag. It was just, with Lord Jagannath gave me this feeling of like, this is like really Vaikuntha. I had goosebumps and was like, really.
So in other words, this is a truly real experience. So different from so many other experiences. So, are there any more questions before we wrap it up?
Does a soul change?
Soul is unchangeable,
It doesn't grow or
always increasing. Your love and your knowledge is ever increasing.
what does knowledge actually mean?
The only knowledge is, the only real knowledge is that I'm part and parcel of Krishna and I'm his eternal servant. And we have this eternal love affair going on. That's knowledge. Anything else is useless knowledge.
It seems like something that's like fixed though, being like a loving servant. So what does it mean for that for your knowledge to increase? You're always going to be a loving servant. What does that mean to increasingly be a loving servant?
Get to be a better servant and a better lover.
Why don't people act that way if that's what they're constitutionally?
Because they're into serving themselves. They're into doing what they want and how they want it and when they want it. And engaging people around them that will get them what they want, how they want, and when they want. Does that make any sense?
But if they were actually serving themselves or doing what they want for themselves, they'd be serving Krishna. Would it be serving the devotional servant? Would it be that they're trying to do stuff for their false self, like their false ego, like their body, rather than like
Body.
do what the actual soul wants? They're serving the
Yeah.
false.
They don't even know. They think they have a soul, but they don't know what the hell it is. Have you ever had anybody explain to you what a soul is? You know, it's something you have. What, do you wear it on your keychain or keep it in your pocket? You know, it's meaningless. All it is I know that if I give it to Satan, he'll grant my wishes. I can sell my soul to Satan. What does this even mean? But who is this you that would give your soul to Satan anyway?
Right.
If you could. See, this is all speculation. None of this.
If someone actually knew their self, they would know Krishna, right?
Yeah.
Because Krishna.
I don't know.
But then why does it seem as though like in the scriptures it's like very rare to actually know Krishna? But wouldn't that mean that it's very rare to know yourself? Or are there degrees of knowing yourself?
In this world, nobody knows themselves, and nobody knows Krishna. Sometimes people, I spent a lot of time traveling through North America back and forth. Once in a while, I find myself in a very rural situation. You know, like backwoods Arkansas. Somebody's got a program going for me there. So you'd be surprised the questions that I get from people who have no understanding whatsoever. And so nobody knows God. I've had people out in these places ask me, why are you trying to convince me that your Krishna is God?
Oh, that's a good explanation.
Huh? I've been out there a lot. I was in Texas for years. So I'm not trying to convince you that my Krishna is your God. I'm just going to put him out there as I understand him, and you'll come to the realization that that's true or not. I remember I was getting caught in a crossfire from some of these folks, you know. And I said, look, there's some misunderstanding here. I'm looking around and I don't see any seatbelts on any of these chairs. If you think I'm trying to push something on you, you can stand up at any time. And if you're going to stand up, you might as well head for that door. This is all free will stuff here. I'm just going to put it out there. And if you take it, that's for your benefit. If you don't, that's your choice.
I thought you were gonna say universe
To the
first.
universe.
Huh?
I thought you were gonna
Put
say
it out to
universe
the
first.
Yeah, you and your universe, or whatever your conception of God is, you go on as you're going now. But if you want to take this Krishna consciousness, which would be the best thing for you, then here it is. Take it or leave it. It's like Krishna told Arjuna after he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He said, so much I have told you. Do with it as you will. So Krishna is not attached. As you will. Take it, reject it. Krishna knows you're going to be back here someday. I don't know how many billions of lifetimes more, but we're going to have our moment. I'm going to have you back in my embrace. I will win because I'm Krishna and I'm the all attractive. Krishna knows who and what he is. So either you take it today, which would make me very happy, or you can take it in a billion lifetimes and that'll make me very happy. And to me, I am time, so that doesn't matter. But I'm here, I'm ready to embrace you. Maybe you don't have a brain that can function in such a way to understand that, because of confusion. People are confused about the material energy. The bodily relationship is very confusing. Confusing in I identify with mine, you identify with yours. We see what the similarities are. We might be friends. If there's not enough similarities, we're not going to be friends. Yeah.
I was just hearing a class by Srila Prabhupada before I came to do the Krishna, as I was getting ready. Srila Prabhupada just made this point and it just struck me out of the whole class. He said, all of your misery is coming from identification with the body. Prabhupada said it with such intensity that he explained a little bit, that if you're feeling any type of misery, you should understand you're in the body of conceptual life.
Right.
And so it's just such a wow, anytime we're feeling any misery, we should just know, here I am in Maya.
Yeah. And for the devotee, it's a test. Krishna's giving you a test. Sometimes we have to deal with the body. But this misery, if we have the proper consciousness, it's not so bad. It's not so, it may seem like it for a while, but then it's not so bad. Once we focus on our relationship with Krishna and our service to Krishna, we may be suffering some sort of disease, but we're able to push that aside and go on with our service. Anything else before we wrap it up? Yeah.
So long as we have like a physical body that we're animated, we're always gonna have some element of suffering. That's right.
Yeah, but you may perceive the suffering differently.
What does it mean we're thought to Jivananda, we're eternal, full knowledge, and blissful. But then how can we be blissful and then also experience suffering by this
Because we identify with the source of that suffering. We identify with the body. That means I'm not seeing my Sat feature. I am Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal. So I'm not self-realized because I'm identifying with this body. This body is not eternal. I don't have my Sat feature. So without that, if I don't have the knowledge to avoid losing my Sat realization, my eternal realization that I'm eternal, then I can't have my knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. See what I mean? Sat Chit Ananda. Eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Full of knowledge. So if I'm mistaking me for my body, that's lack of knowledge. That's ignorance. So I don't know that I'm eternal. So that means I'm not full of knowledge. So therefore, it's impossible for me to feel bliss.
Is it possible to be experiencing bliss and also feeling some type of suffering?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bliss of separation, which is also suffering. It's a bliss, but it's suffering.
Is any unwanted conscious experience suffering?
Basically, suffering is going to come from the perception. So the way science explains it, it's like there's really no such thing as pain. But you have these nerve receptors. Like if I stick a knife into my arm, well, these nerves tell my brain something. It's got to say something. It can't ignore it because this could be dangerous to the body. So these nerves tell my brain, this hurts. You see, it's a perception.
So like, does bliss exist in the field of perception, or is that something that's not perceived? That's like a different thing. Perception.
Bliss and knowledge go hand in hand. I mean, they say ignorance is bliss. We've all heard that. Ignorance is bliss. Knowledge is the true bliss. You could be ignorant and we've all seen people who have too many beers or something, too many tequilas. And they're like real happy, yeah, for a while. And then all of a sudden they're upset. They start crying. They need a bartender to talk to. It doesn't make any sense for people to go to a bar to buy alcohol because it's so expensive. It doesn't make any sense. People go there to associate with other people and maybe a bartender or somebody so they can tell their problems. I mean, that's basically what people in that service have to do, is listen to people's problems and complaints. All right, let's sign it off. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jivananda Prabhu ki